All right, 2 hours until show. I figure I should probably film a short little video for B-roll on the show and also for the internet. So this is going to be a long, rambly video, mostly technical stuff, but I just kind of want to go over some of the changes that we made recently, because we moved a bunch of stuff around, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Any comments, leave them down below. And I'm just filming this with my phone, so hopefully it turns out okay. And I'm just going to spin around here and transition to the better lens. Oh, much better. This has been sort of changed and cleaned out. We've mainly cleaned the lounge, and that's kind of the main point in this video. But just to kind of show around, we've got our TV here. We got these big speakers. Here's all of our different camera views. I'll stop by each one of these and talk about how they're set up in a minute. And then I think that's pretty much it for the moment in here. Yeah, let's talk about the lounge first, because that's one of the big things that changed. So it is nice and clean in here now. So here's kind of a TV on the wall that's on just for effect there. There's also a sign that says Mic Live, and that is triggered by an Arduino that lives behind this wall. But it's not set up currently because I have to run a cable for it. So right now that actually does not work. But normally it receives a MIDI signal and it turns on whenever the microphones are on in the studio, which is really nice. But yeah, this is kind of like a nice little hangout spot we got, and mini fridge, which I don't think is on right now. This is actually a green screen folded up. It kind of looks like a pillow, but yeah, there's that. And then this is kind of like storage over here. There's the back of the house, and of course the stairs down to the stair landing there, which we really need to clean up. And then you might notice there's no equipment here anymore. There's one UPS sitting over there, and there's some wires. I got to clean that up. But this used to be the gear rack. It was all right here, and it took up a ton of space. And I knew that we wanted to move it into the server room, but I knew that doing so was going to be a huge project. It was going to cost a lot of money, and we finally did it. It actually wasn't all that expensive, all told, but we did have to rerun every line into the production room. So we basically had to rehook up the whole studio. So I'm going to jump over here and kind of show you guys that. So this is kind of the unfinished off, like this is what the attic used to look like up here before we remodeled and put all these walls in. So this is kind of like the old part that we haven't touched. It's just plywood on the floor. And some of this is blocked already because we started moving storage around. I got my old audio interface here. But here is the cabling. And that goes through these crawl spaces. So you might see, yeah, by the way, I know this electrical wiring. I wish that was better. And part of me wants to kind of move this and do it correctly and put a box there. It does go through the wall correctly, but I was actually super nervous when we started hooking up the whole studio. I ran over all these electrical lines with a thermal camera and all the boxes with a thermal camera because I was like really worried, but they seem okay for now. So, but the roof of the house essentially continues at an angle, but we built the walls straight so that we have these kind of open access crawl spaces. And so that's where all this cabling comes from. So this is RG6, Quad Shield RG6, and this is running all of our SDI lines. This is all VGA because I actually use VGA for the computer monitors. There's no VGA involved in the broadcast. This is just for like the computer screens that I have to see. I really just didn't want to use DisplayPort or HDMI or any of that shit because it has so many problems when you try to extend it this far. You know, this is about from that wall to this wall is about 50 or so feet. By the way, here's the gear rack now. Fits nicely right here next to the electrical box. You can also see it's almost 30 degrees Celsius in here right now. It does get very toasty in here. That is actually the next project, is putting HVAC in here. It is winter in our region currently, so we seem to be doing okay, but we're definitely going to need HVAC in here at some point. But anyway, so moving back to this is all Cat 6, so it's RG6, Cat 6, and VGA, and that is it. That is the only thing that runs between the studio now. And before I jump into this, let me just jump back into this other room. So most of these control monitors are all like 1280 by 1024 VGA monitors. And I did that because these are cheap and I really just don't care how they look. As long as they look good on camera and as long as I can see everything that's going on, we're okay. But the one monitor that's the exception is this one. And this is where I do like the roundup, or like if we have like Skype callers, this is to broadcast essentially. And you'll notice that it's actually a 16:9, and this is a digital 1080p monitor. And you can also notice that it's replicated up there on the switcher. I figured, okay, well, I'll run VGA for all these, and I'll just run HDMI for this. And you can get like those, what are they, like the Ethernet extender kits? Not really Ethernet, it's Cat 6. So I bought one, piece of shit, didn't work, returned that, bought another one, and the second one that I bought, what it did is it compressed the data stream as like a motion JPEG stream and then shoved it over Ethernet frame. So it was actually Ethernet on the wire, because most of those like HDMI extender kits, if you've ever used them, they're not actually Ethernet. They just use the wire. But anyway, it was terrible. And I didn't want to go SDI with this because SDI is 422. And if I jump over here for a second, let me just pull this down. So this is like a little clock program, right? And if I drag this down, we can kind of see that the gray dots are nice resolution, but the red is all like kind of bleeding around the edges. And that's because this is running 422 now, because I ended up having to go with an SDI converter. And that's actually what this little guy down here is. And another thing I ran into with this monitor, when you use the HDMI port, it will handshake YUV to this SDI converter. But then when it does that, it overscans. So it would cut off all the edges. So I'm like, okay, well, I can't have that. But then I got an HDMI to DVI cable, and for whatever reason, then the monitor handshakes RGB. So then it wasn't overscanning, but then the luminance levels were wrong, because the luminance levels are supposed to be partial range for SDI. But turns out these little Blackmagic, these little guys, these little SDI converters, they actually have a setting. They're powered over USB, but you can also plug USB into a computer. You can change a setting on these that fixes the luminance mapping. So that was what I had to do with this, just because this is a computer monitor. It's not really meant to be like a TV. This is actually like a TV. So this is all YUV and everything like that. And, all said and done, 422 is not terrible. There's definitely a few things where, like, you look around the edges of, like, some colors and they kind of bleed. Like, when you kind of mouse over, like, red, like, you can kind of see how there's like, it almost looks like JPEG artifacting on the edge there. But it's not terrible. Like, it's usable. And really, I only need this just to be able to see what's going on for the show. So unfortunately, I couldn't do HDMI for this. So even this is SDI. So there's no HDMI going between these two rooms anymore. There used to be a bunch of lines, because like these cameras here, I could actually get away with running HDMI out through the wall, out through here, and then to the gear, because it was just short enough that it worked. But now it's way too far away, and HDMI just would not work at all. So there are SDI converters everywhere. There's two over here. On the back of the TV here, we've got a bidirectional SDI converter. Here's the two SDI feeds coming in, and then the two HDMI lines out. One is for the TV, that's right here, and then the black one goes to the camera over here. By the way, our main camera is GH5. Absolutely love that camera. The GH5, well, the dynamic range is not crazy impressive, and it's obviously Micro Four Thirds. I have to say, Panasonic did a fantastic job on just getting the standard mode, just the regular video mode on these cameras, to look really good. It has really nice highlight roll-off, really nice like shadow detail and everything. And it's kind of funny because over here, I've got my old Nikon D8 or D750, and it's like taking a step into the past with this camera. Like everything from the posterization, like for instance, let's see how my phone handles it. Yeah, see how there's like a highlight around that orange, kinda. It does not look like that in real life. But most cameras don't know how to roll off that saturation or roll off those highlights. Same with this. And this camera's really bad at that. even though this is a full frame camera and it has really good dynamic range when you take like raw photos and stuff, but its video modes have improved so much. But shout out to Panasonic, fantastic camera, GH5. These cameras are G7s, which were kind of like the consumer GH5 from a while ago. They're pretty decent. We use those for our main headshots. This is just the stock kit lens on this one. This is Pharaoh's shot. And then the shot on me is an adapter to a Nikon full frame lens, but it's micro four thirds, so it becomes more like a 100 millimeter lens. So it's manual focus. And that is the shot that is on me normally during the show. Kind of like that. And that's pretty much that. What else can I talk about? Oh, while we're still in here, I'll mention, so you notice all these monitors are numbered. And that's because all of the PCs run into a matrix switcher, and then the matrix switcher feeds all of these displays. So I can kind of map anything anywhere. And you'll notice that over here, it's actually the same screen doubled. And here's a little mini confidence monitor. This is like one of those just little small HDMI monitors. And then over here is my Atomos. This is basically just receiving an HDMI signal. So you can see it's receiving the 1080p 5994. This is really nice though, because I've got all my like scopes on here. So if I want to look at that stuff, if I want to make sure that like the signal's not getting messed with at all, I can do all that stuff, which is really nice. But this records DNX HD it gets the audio and the video over HDMI, and it records DNX HD, and then that I usually transcode to H.264 or something like that, and then throw it up on YouTube. Maybe someday I'll transcode it to AV1. Trying to think what else we can mention. Oh yeah, while we're here, I'll talk about this rack. We haven't finished cleaning up these cables yet, but I'll talk about this. Here's the receiver that powers these big clip speakers. I love these things. They are really nice. Titanium 1-inch horn-loaded tweeter. They are impressive sounding, but you would not want to listen to a movie on these because they frickin' hurt. And my plan with this lounge is actually to make a home movie theater, but I'll talk about that in a second. This rack. So this is our old video switcher. It's 720p only, and it gets an audio feed actually from our Dante system. So our audio system is entirely Dante now, which is like audio over Ethernet. So I don't use any like rack mount audio interfaces. I used to use RME and Focusrite, but I sold those, and now this is our audio chain right there. Those little Dante dongles, and then those feed into our little monitoring station here, and I've got one right here actually. So this is what they are. They are PoE Ethernet in, and then it's literally just a dongle with some XLR or TRS ends on the end, and that's pretty much it. And this runs most of our audio system now. So this is a PoE Ethernet switch powering all of the Dante gear. There's some behind here that plug into our preamps. I use Great River preamps for the U87 microphone there. And then I use Fredenstein preamps for the CAD microphones, just like the cheap Neumann knockoff K67 capsule condensers. Believe it or not, you throw a low pass on these, and they sound surprisingly close to these U87s, which is kind of funny. But anyway, this is another SDI converter, although this one is a scaler. So what happens is some of our cameras are 720p, and they get output and then scaled, and then that gets fed back into the server room, and then a program feed comes back in over SDI, or actually I think it's this one, and then that gets spit out, and then that's actually what shows up on there. So this is how this thing gets audio. You can actually see there's audio coming in right now because I'm talking from these machines. But yeah, this is all Dante, so I can mouse over here, and we can load up our Dante controller. I love Dante, by the way. It's awesome. So you can see there's all our routing, and we can take a look at our our like device latencies and everything. So I've got to jump over to core and then go to latency. You can see we're getting, 400 microseconds through the switches. So I actually did have to do a bit of QoS on these switches. So we've got one PC in this room, and it's this PC. And this is the PC that just runs on this touchscreen, and that was why. It's just because of USB cable, the computer. And so I had to plug it into this Ethernet switch. And it's kind of funny, if you run a speed test, so these Dante devices, when they spit audio out over the network, they spit it out in nice sequential little tiny frames. But most computers don't work that way. Computers generally, when I say computers, I mean like, Windows, Linux, Mac OS. Usually they use big frames, not necessarily jumbo, but like, your 1500 MTU frames, and they shove them out like in bursts. They build up like a cache and then shove them out. And so the problem is when you run a speed test, even if you're not like flooring gigabit, let's say the computer's here and it comes in, the switch will have these big frames that it has to get out. And meanwhile, the Dante device here is sending, lots of little frames. And so when it goes out of the switch, it can actually create a little bit of latency for the Dante devices. Now, when I say latency, I mean, we're talking, half a millisecond or whatever, right? But it's enough actually to throw off the Dante audio system. So I actually programmed some QoS into this. It's pretty easy. You just set DSCP flags and then that fixes it. And then that means that our audio system always has priority. You can see there's a latency spike on one device. Oh, that's a PC, so that's pretty understandable. But yeah, you can see that one peaked at, oh, these are all PCs. Yep, so like if we look at the Dante device that's doing the Neumanns, you could see 400 something microseconds. Not bad. But yeah, it was just interesting having to learn network latency for these audio devices. And this is just my spare, by the way, in case like we have a DJ or something. So that's why I keep that one lying around. This unit, all it does is convert AES3, because I have one of these dongles that spits out AES3. It converts that to SPDIF. And really the only difference there is the voltage and the impedance. And also AES is balanced and SPDIF is unbalanced. And that's because this old video switcher takes AES EBU in. AES EBU is AES3, the same thing. So I have a little adapter on here, and it's BNC. And then that means that this switcher gets audio, which means it can embed the audio, and then the embedded audio makes it all the way back to the other switcher, and then all the way back into here, and then all the way back up to there. And that is how the recording works. I also split the SPDIF and run it into the receiver here, just for nice digital audio going into here. But I'm actually not using this to resample anything. You can see it's clocked on the input. So it's not using its internal clock. So there's no sample rate conversion going on or anything. Now this switcher, because it's a video switcher, it actually resamples the audio. No matter what you do, it resamples it to its own internal clock, the same clock that it uses for the frame synchronization. And that's so that the audio and the video will always line up. So it converts that to 48K. So I run everything 44.1 because we want to be bit transparent to the music that we play. But this resamples to 48K, and then that runs into there. And that way, because this actually stores PCM audio and stores, the frames of video as they are and drop frame timecode. So to keep the audio and video lined up, that's why this runs resampler. I do not, other than YouTube, because this goes on YouTube, other than that, our audio is not through the video system. These computers, these are the two broadcast machines. This is SD broadcast, this is HD broadcast. They also both get an audio recording. They both record bit transparent 44.1 24-bit. And that is through the Dante virtual sound card that's on both of these machines. And so our audio is bit transparent here. It's not bit transparent for just this video system. This is a cool little GPS clock. Isn't it neat? I like it. I think it's pretty cool. Anyway, let's jump over into the server room. So, all this shit goes all the way back here. This random chair's in the way here. Here's all the PCs. So you can see encode SD, music playout, video playout. There's the core, and there is the HD encoding PC. Each one of these PCs gets, so here's the VGA for the control monitor. Here's Ethernet. And then here is SDI into a Bluefish card. This PC uses a Bluefish card. This one uses a Blackmagic card. You can see VGA is all routed, and then everything is all Velcro tied into this switch. This also has the DSCP QoS on it. Here's the matrix switcher here. So you can see like PC number 7 is routed to those two displays, or like the music PC 5 is routed to those two displays. So that's the easy way that I can route that stuff. Here is our main switcher. It's just one of the Blackmagic TV studios. These things are pretty awesome. It'd be nice to have more inputs and some other features, but we won't talk about that. But it's pretty decent. It just does all the frame synchronization for me. And I don't think if there's anything else like worth mentioning about this, but I don't think so. You can also see a little preview of the video there. The graphics come from downstairs. I have a PC downstairs that feeds 2 SDI lines up, and that does fill and key for the graphics, and that just runs up here. This is an unfortunate pile of shit, so I know cable management people will get very upset. This will eventually get fixed. Right now, I just needed it all to be hooked up. For power, we get a 240 60 amp line coming up, and then the 240 gets split, it's split phase. So then we've got 20 amp breakers on all of the circuits, and they're all labeled there. Everything is on UPSs. So there's the UPS there, a bunch of old switches here. There's also a transfer switch down here. Here are the patch panel and everything. This is our core switch. This is actually a layer 3 switch, but I'm not using any of the layer 3 functions right now. I probably will at some point. The firewall, which is currently pfSense, I need to try OpenSense at some point, separates the two networks. So there's a VLAN for the house. Here's all of the lines for the house, by the way. We ran Cat6 to every room in the house. So that goes through the chimney. It's not inside the chimney, by the way. It's actually outside the perimeter of the chimney. So like it doesn't get hot or anything. And there's no fireplace. It's just one of those like ventilation things. But inside here is actually a concrete cylindrical tube. And those cables stay on the outside of it, and they're plenum rated. So is that up to code? Fuck no, it's not up to code. I don't give a shit. So yeah, PoE layer 3 switch that I'm barely using. And then you can see all the house is blue, all the studio is red. This goes to our DMARC in the basement. We have gigabit symmetrical, so it's gigabit down, gigabit up. It's a GPON provider. It's the Verizon Fios product there. There's also a spot for a backup cable modem here for our other ISP, but we had to take that out for the moment. Hoping to get that put back in soon because we don't have backup internet right now. But the backup internet is not nearly as fast, but it's just failover in case something happens. The battery in the RAID card in this server is dead, so that's why there's a warning on the screen. But other than that, this is just our storage array. This is also our transcoding server. So when we live stream, we send 1080 in and it generates the 720 stream, and then that goes up to our CDN, which is all Linode mostly. And then that goes out to broadcast with you guys. And that's pretty much it. This is all just Cat6. I need to clean all this up at some point. That is a feed to Maruski's place. And yeah, that's pretty much all she wrote in here. So this cart is, you can actually wheel it away and all of this will come undone. And so you can actually wheel this cart through the room, and it's powered. It has its own power cable that goes to a UPS. So you can completely isolate this thing and move it around, which is really, really cool. And eventually we'll make this room look nicer, because right now it looks like an attic. which, I mean, it is an attic, but yeah. And then in here, I want to do a home theater system at some point. These are JBL LSR 305s. They're the same speakers I have here, the LSR 305s. These things are awesome. At some point, I would love to have some Neumann monitors or maybe some Dynaudios, but money. But for the price, these are awesome. Can't recommend them enough. And I'm planning on building a 5.1 system out of them. They take balanced TRS or XLR in. And that's actually why I kept this. This is our old Pro 40 audio interface. And I was thinking I would stick that here, and we're going to get a nice big TV. Might go with like an LG C9 or something like that. Something that has good HDR specs. Apparently the LG C9 is good. And then this UPS will probably move. This is an SDI drop. The SDI, it's all hidden behind this wall right now, but there's a converter in there that spits out the HDMI that goes to this TV. And this is just like a TV so that you can chill in the lounge and see what's going on. Eventually, like I said, there's going to be like a whole home theater system here. I also bought the matching sub for these, and that's arriving at some point. So that'll be fun. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just figured like this would be like a nice, like kind of chill, hangout area. Switch to wide angle here. So that'll be pretty cool. As for in here, there's our HVAC. I'm trying to think if there's anything else like worth mentioning in here that we've like changed. It was mainly just cleaning up this rack and switching to Dante. Yeah. I'm just gonna sit here for a second and think if there's anything else I'm missing. We need to build more of these panels, by the way. These are just Rockwell insulation inside of a frame of 2x4s, and then just tacked up on the wall. Highly recommend this for acoustic treatment. We got our narrowband foam. This foam works pretty good, but I want to get rid of some of this narrowband stuff and get more wideband absorption. And you can see we've got more wideband absorption around the room. It could be better. I do kind of want to improve that a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Everything is battery backed up. And normally we have backup internet as well. And each one of these cameras has a little SDI converter. There's an SDI converter there. There's converters there. So literally everything is SDI in here now, and VGA for these. By the way, you can run VGA like 50 feet, and it does not give a fuck. Like, there's a little bit of you can see a little bit of bleed there. But like, just for being able to monitor stuff, like, it's fine, like, whatever. This, by the way, is a Korg MIDI controller. That's an X Keys that does some of our graphics stuff for the Casper CG box that's downstairs. There's another MIDI controller here. Yeah, I think that's all she wrote. I gotta clean some of this stuff up. Oh, all the cabling down here, sorry it's a little dark, is now comes out of the wall in a nice little wall plate. So these are actually 75 ohm BNC Keystone jacks right there. And then these are all Cat 6 drops right there. And just to give you a better close-up, this is actually what these things look like in the wall. Now, these I had to take out because these are 50 ohm. So I ran into some issues. I had to buy 75 ohm ones because SDI is normally, you can kind of see in there if you look at the shape of it. But I also happen to know, I looked up these and they're 50 ohm. So I had to buy 75 ohm BNCs and put those on the wall, but now that's all nice. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a nice little hangout space. And all of our storage that we still need to get rid of and fix. It's all kinds of piles of old gear, old PCs, old firewalls, old MIDI controllers and amps and all kinds of shit. But I did start organizing things in bins, luckily. Like, I have a huge bin in the basement now of VGA cables. That bin is entirely HDMI. That bin is IEC power cables. The rest of it is mostly like adapters, like DisplayPort adapters and shit like that. And then this is a bunch of boxes of just power strips and cables and stuff. So yeah. So anyway, crazy place. The lighting needs to be a bit better. It's 3200 Kelvin, reasonably high CRI LEDs, but they're just in these Home Depot work lights. And then we just tacked some, I think Lee 316. I think it's Lee 316. And then some of them have some CTB on them as well, because I found the lights weren't quite what they said on the box. And they have a bit of a magenta push, so at some point I need to get better lighting for in here. I might actually change the white balance too. We're doing 3200 right now. I might bump it up to like 4000, just because in real life it actually looks rather yellow in here. Up here I have track lighting as well, and this track lighting is literally incandescent bulbs, and we have a little switch on the wall that kind of turns those on. And that's just if we're like hanging out in here and chilling and want it to be nice and cozy. I went with incandescent because high CRI. I think that's it. Oh, this desk still goes up, so you can still raise this up. Now, in order to do that, some of these cables had to droop. So you can see down here, these cables droop, and that's so that it can move up and down and everything. We still got power strips to service all of the guests, like when they plug their laptops in and everything. But there's no cables on the floor anymore. We cleaned all of it up, which is nice. Even the microphone, like this U87 here, is all rotted underneath. It looks messy, but a lot of it is for a reason. Like I said, this has to droop down because this desk moves. And some of the rest of it will probably get cleaned up at some point. Down here, sorry if this looks like noisy ass, by the way, I've got it on the wide angle. There is a USB over Cat6 extender. So, get out of here. This USB, the keyboard, the mouse, those all go over a Cat6 extender in order to get into the other room. And that's been working pretty good. I haven't had too many issues. I think that's it. Cool. Write comments below. If you're watching this video and it's been like 6 months since it's posted, we've probably redone the whole thing again. So check the YouTube channel for more, because I'm sure there will be more cool changes and stuff. Anyway, thanks guys.